How you doing today? I'm going to show you guys in this video how to do repaste and apply a liquid metal on your ASUS gaming laptop. This one is a ROG Strix and exact model is a GL502VM. It comes with an iCore 7th Gen and NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1060, I believe. I already made a video to show you guys how to replace the keyboard. I'll leave the link in the description if you guys need that one done, but in this video I'm going to show you guys how to repaste. Alright, first thing first, you want to flip your laptop over. You want to remove the front set of the screws on the front side of the laptop. These screws have as soon as you remove them, you're going to see a blue color on the screws. Okay, that's a lock for it, for the security lock. As soon as you open, so the front one is going to be blue color. There's a little bit shorter. The mid and the back ones are colored with the red. They're a little more stiff and a little longer. Once you remove all the screws, what do you want to do? You want to grab yourself a guitar pick. Yeah, they don't have rough edges, so you can't scratch them. So you're going to stick it in between the top and bottom cover, and you're going to wiggle around, and you're going to do this all around the laptop. Sometimes it comes easy, sometimes it doesn't. And this one, it really just came out easy. Sometimes you have to move and do the same thing all around it. And once you get it out, the cover is going to be just like this. Alright. Down here, what are we going to do first? We're going to remove the battery. Just disconnect it. We're not going to remove it. We're going to disconnect the battery by lifting up the cables right here. I suggest to do it with a plastic tweezers if you have. But unless you don't want to, right there, just underneath and pull up. Don't pull towards the laptop, you have to pull it towards the ceiling. Alright, next we're gonna remove the cables for the fans. We gotta remove this aluminum tape, I believe, or just a black tape. It is aluminum tape, so just lift it up over the pipe, leave it right there. Next, we're gonna remove the screws for the fan, 3 screws on each side. Once you remove the screws for the fan, this fan, it will come out easy. There's no tape or anything. This one will not come out because there's an aluminum tape on the other side and a copper tape, and it's holding it. So in order to remove this one, you have to actually remove the tape on the other side, remove the motherboard, or just remove the fan with the heatsink. This side you can remove because there's no tape on it. Alright, so what we're going to do right now, we're going to remove the 4 screws on the CPU and 4 screws on the GPU. How do I know if this is GPU? Because they have the VRAMs right beside it, and the CPU doesn't need a VRAM, has a normal RAM. And this is your PCS chip. Also, it needs to be cooled down because this one acts as a, whatever you do, transferring files from the hard drive to hard drive, transferring from the Thunderbolt USB, this one really heats up and can cause lots of issues with the Wi-Fi, keyboard, touchpad, many other things. So you want to keep this one cool, so we're gonna come up with a solution for this one. So let's go ahead and remove the heatsink. Also, these X clamps that they have on the CPU and GPU, these flimsy things, they are actually doing nothing. Pretty much it just holds the heatsink. Pretty much these X clamps are useless. You know, they don't have any tension to pull the heatsink towards the CPU or GPU. They are there to just hold the heatsink. And as we know, like physics taught us, in order to transfer better heat, you need pressure between two materials. So we need lots of pressure increase from the heatsink towards the GPU or CPU. And we're gonna accomplish that by applying a copper shim right in between, pretty much right under the die. So there's gonna be a copper shim lifting up and generating more pressure. So these legs actually have to go a little bit lower to pull the heatsink towards the CPU or GPU. So we're gonna use 2 copper shims, 1 on each, and I'm gonna show you guys how to do it. Alright, let's go ahead and lift up the heatsink. There's no more screws here. Alright. The fan will not come out. The fan is actually stuck with the copper tape to the other side of the board, but not on this side. Alright, as we lift up, and I see that instead of using a thermal pad, they're using a thermal paste on the component right over there. So I'm not actually gonna change the thermal component. I'm just gonna add a different thermal component right on it, beside it. If you guys are gonna overclock or do anything like that, then yeah, go ahead and change your thermal component. Remove the cover, this one. It actually has, I see that they have 1, 2, 3 chip for VRAMs right here, and I believe on the other side there should be more VRAMs. 3 is a very odd number. Anyway, so let's get it started. We're gonna remove this Kapton tape over the GPU and the CPU, because we're not gonna use Kapton tape. Be very careful with the capacitors right on top. You don't want to damage these tiny capacitors. Be very gentle. On the CPU, usually they don't have any capacitors. You can remove it easily if you heat it up with a heat gun. What we're gonna do right now, we're gonna clean up the thermal paste. I really recommend you to don't use kitchen towels or anything like that. Use these mechanical towels. They are really good, they don't leave anything behind. You're gonna be gentle with the GPU. Once you get the die cleaned up, I'm gonna show you a trick to clean beside all around the capacitors, because you don't wanna clean it with a towel, because otherwise if you put a little bit more force, you're gonna destroy the capacitors. For the CPU, you don't need to. It's already fine. There is this adhesive crap that they had on the Kapton tape. The trick with to clean this one is a toothbrush. I find it to be really working well with that. I use a medium toothbrush, not a really hard one. It's just circular motion, just go around it. This way you won't damage the capacitors or anything like that. And you just want to softly remove whatever you can. I'm just cleaning the die. That's the proper way of cleaning the GPU or any BGA that has a capacitors, tiny ones around it. I really want to remove this adhesive thing that it has on the CPU. You have to be patient with these things. Usually it doesn't leave you trace like that, but I guess in this model they really overdone it. The alcohol really helps to soften the adhesive. So and the reason I'm removing this is because I'm gonna put a tape, and I don't want the tape to touch this one. This is what I call clean CPU. Alright, next we're gonna clean the thermal paste over this one. And also clean up the ventilation. Make sure there's no extra dust or anything in there. So we're gonna clean up this both side. Same thing with an alcohol. And just, if it's really hard, use the same plastic to just remove the excess, and then the rest you do it in alcohol. I'm using 100% alcohol, so it has no water. Now we're gonna find a nice copper shim. Always make sure you find the flattest one. If a little bit of the curve or uneven on it, it's not gonna work. It has to be completely flat. The best way to test the copper shim that if they're flat or not, you put them against a mirror. Glass or window, it can be imperfect, but a mirror is always perfect flat. So if you put it against a mirror and there's no wobbling or anything lifted from any corners, that's a perfect one. If you use a copper shim that is flat or bended, even a tiny slightest bend, it is not gonna work and you're gonna get a way different temperatures. So you have to make sure it's completely flat. Some people say I get a better result without a copper shim and worse result with the copper shim is because the copper shims are not flat. If you put the flat one, you 100% have to get way better result. There's no way you can get worse result without the copper shim. With the copper shim input. So we're gonna clean up the copper shim. But you want to remove any coating that they have on top. You want to have a pure copper with no coatings. So you want to remove any dirt on this one. Make sure it's all clean. Don't press too high, don't bend it. Just rub and hold it from the sides. Alright, that's gonna be for that. You see all this dirt? That's what I'm talking about. You have to clean it nicely. You don't want any grease or fingerprints on them. Alright, now that we have these two ready, what we're gonna do in here is another trick. You want to bend the legs a little bit backward towards the outer side. So if you pay attention, the legs are really flat. The X-clamp, I call this. You want to bend the X-clamp towards the side so you have more tension when you put the screws back on. And to achieve that, you have to be very careful. You don't want to rip these ribbons right here. You just want to bend it right on the elbow right there. And I use these screwdrivers. It has this kind of notch. This is for HVAC screwdrivers. So I just put it right there and just twist it towards the back. And with my two fingers, I'm gonna hold the base, so I make sure that I'm not bending that one. So I'm just pulling it towards the other side. Now if you pay attention, this one, it's much more this way. So if I put the screw, I'm gonna have more tension pushing the heatsink towards the CPU or GPU. And this is a really great help to dissipate the heat, to transfer the heat. Just make sure they have the same size, I mean the same height. Don't do one too much and one too little. Make sure they are roughly at the same height. Otherwise you're gonna have more pressure on one side and less pressure on the other side. Same thing with the back leggings. Right there. I'm gonna put out results for before and after, and so you guys can see the result. I'm gonna do a benchmark with a Prime 95 firm mark, and I'm gonna put the chart right there. So remember, sometimes in the benchmark, if you even stress the CPU, the GPU heats up too, because the heat is actually sharing on the same pipe. So I have done the before, so I put the GPU on max load. The CPU goes up to 95 Celsius because the heat is actually transferring over. So this is the reason I don't like shared heat pipes. These are not cool. Alright, I'm getting my hand all messy with the thermal paste right there. If you want, you can just change this thermal paste with a different thermal paste, but honestly there is no reason to change this or even have a thermal paste in here, because these components are meant for the regular voltage that is gonna go through. So unless you overclock it, then you're gonna pass more voltage through here and they eventually heat up even more. By heating up even more, you bringing down the lifespan of these ones. So I highly recommend to not do overclock. Even if you cool it down, you bringing the lifespan of the components down. Overclocking, it's what the companies want everybody to do. They love when people overclock. They encourage people to overclock, and that's terrible. You should, if you want to overclock, just go buy a better CPU. Some people think, oh, I overclock, I get a better performance just by a single frame. That's just garbage. For one frame, you're gonna risk your bringing down the lifespan of your computer. That's just crazy. So I'm just gonna lift up everything here, and I'm gonna put it right on top of this one. One main thing, we're gonna start taping it. We're gonna use a Scotch tape 33 plus. So I recommend you guys to buy the Scotch tape 33 plus. These are really good, high temperature, and people say like if I protect them with a nail polish or protection, no, I don't recommend it because it's gonna crack the protection that you have within a few months. But this one will not crack. So you're gonna cover all the capacitors really close near the GPU. You want to cut it nicely everywhere so your performance, as long as you cover the capacitors, you are fine. If you want to go really tight and clean, go ahead, do it. On the CPU, I wouldn't put any tape, but there's no capacitors or anything like that. For the sake of this video, I'm gonna put a tape. No harm done when you put in the tape. I put the tape a little bit off here so that even if the liquid metal drips, it won't go underneath the CPU. So no harm done if it goes on the side of the CPU. If you want to protect it nicely. The reason I put it here, not close to here, so I can get to the edge of the CPU. Nothing is gonna happen if the liquid metal touches the PCB. It won't do anything. It only reacts with the metals. Alright, now that we covered everything, we're gonna do last cleaning on the dies because they're really dirty. And then we're gonna apply the liquid metal. We're gonna apply liquid metal on the die. We're gonna apply the liquid metal on the heatsink and on both sides of the copper sheet. You're gonna put a tiniest drop on the die. Be very gentle. And one tiny drop right on the CPU. Alright, and we're gonna start working from there. Grab any cotton tape that you want. Doesn't have to be the one that comes in the bag. It doesn't mean the colors or anything. So and you're gonna start rubbing it. This is a little bit too much right on the die, way too much. And we're gonna grab from here and we're gonna apply on the other side. Same thing here. This is too much for the die. We're gonna grab it from here and we're gonna apply. On this side of the copper shell, I'm just gonna apply right in the middle, the side that is supposed to cover the crystal die. So I'm just eyeballing it from here to here. You just want to paint it, you don't want to put too much excess on the copper shell. On this side, you want to cover as much as you can because this side is going to touch the heatsink. It's going to be touching the whole heatsink right here. So more contact it has, the better. So grab it from here and just paint. I usually do the mid areas, and then if my fingers allow me, I'll do the side. That should be enough. Once we got that one there, so now you can see on the chip almost there is nothing. We're gonna leave a little blob right in the middle, and we can grab it from there and put it here. We have to paint on this side too, so every side has to be painted. Right in here I'm gonna paint right where the marker is mostly, and the die is a little longer than that, so to paint a little more towards the top. It is hard to get it on the heatsink. It's not actually painting it, so don't worry about it. You just have to keep trying it. It's gonna go black because there's a coating right there, so you want to keep rubbing it until you get it right. But before that, I'm not gonna use any more from here because I need everything in there. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna lay down the heatsink right there, and once you put it down, you don't lift it up. It stays where you put, and that's it. Now we're gonna do the same thing on this side. We're gonna deal with the heatsink in a minute. So when you see it's getting black on the tip, use the other side. It's very important to paint every side of the coppers, even the heatsink. Otherwise, it's not gonna do the job. This one is for this side is for this one because it just inverts, remember. Alright. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna put this one to a side, and we're gonna lay down the shell for the CPU. Right there. Okay, now we're gonna deal with this one. So we're gonna clean up the heatsink again. Clean it up really nice. Apply a little bit of force. Okay. Make sure there is no dirt because there's always gonna be some kind of dirt on it. Now you can see once you clean it, it gets really easy to apply the liquid metal. We have to apply a little bit of tiny liquid metal in here because I don't have any more left over. I'm gonna apply a little, oh, too much. You can just suck it back in with the same syringe. Right there. I think I'm gonna use the same one from here to put it on the other side. So that tiny drop right there, it's more than enough. Alright, this should be well done. So that's how much you want to get in. And we are almost done. There's one more last thing to do. You're gonna grab a thermal paste, and I don't recommend you guys use a thermal pads in here. If you use a thermal pads over the component, it's gonna actually do a counter force and it's gonna push the heatsink towards the opposite side of the CPU and GPU. So always use a thermal paste. That's the most recommendable. I'm gonna use an Arctic MX4. Just little damp on every tiny black ones. Again, I'm telling you guys, don't overclock. Some people insist of overclocking. Don't do it unless you don't care. And if you don't care, you don't even want to watch this video. People that do this video is because they care about their laptop and they want to have a better one and longer lasting one. So now that we have the copper shim there and the thermal pads in place, thermal paste, we're going to slide down this side and we want to align it nicely. We can't do this twice. You do this once. Once you put it down, you don't lift it up. I have to pull the laptop levers towards my head, otherwise the camera is gonna show me. Okay, before anything, just cut this bottom thing little off. Just a little bit, because I don't want to cover the ventilation. Right there. Okay. Now let's go again. Put this side down slowly. Make sure the holes for the GPU and CPU match. And once it goes down, it never comes back up. There we have it. Now quickly, we're gonna put the screws, starting from this side. One right there and one right in the other side. You wanna cross stitch these screws. Alright. Now you can actually put this heatsink back on top. Put the fan. This doesn't stick, don't worry about it. What I usually do with this one, but this one has a protection on this side. You can put a double-sided tape, but I'm gonna use a thermal pad adhesive double-sided. So it's a better ones. I'm gonna leave it in the description. These are double-sided tape, but they are thermally compounded, so they can transfer heat better. So put it right on top. Remove that. And now press it down. And that's not gonna come off. It will come out, but not too easy. Right, now we got that in. We're gonna grab the fan. Put the fan in place. Which way was it? This way. Okay, the fan goes underneath. Plug in the fan and put the screws for the heat fan. 3 screws for each fan. There we have it. Now we're gonna do a test to see if we have any power and if it turns on. If it doesn't, oh, I did forget to put this one on, but it's not a big deal. This is just isolating there. So this is supposed to go in between the RAMs and the heatsink and some stuff right there. So if you wanted, you could have done it, but no need for it. Let me double check. No, you don't need this one. So one thing is really surprising me. Like honestly, I don't get it. If you watched back there in the video, if you roll back a little bit, I'll try to get a snapshot of that. These ones are supposed to touch the VRAMs, this metal thing here, right? But it's not even touching. That's why the thermal paste on top, it was intact, because it was not watching. So it's a defect. So they're supposed to have a thermal pads instead of thermal liquid, because if I press on this one, you can actually see if it's going up and down. So there is no way this one is actually cooling down your GPU VRAMs. So that's pretty useless right there, unless you put a thermal pad. Again, you don't need to do it because we're not gonna overclock this one. If you want to overclock your VRAMs, you definitely have to put a thermal pad right underneath. Because for default, these ones are not touching. So pretty much this this is useless too. So we're gonna plug in the battery just by snapping them back in place right there, and let's try to turn it on. Power lights on, and we are in business. I'm just gonna wait for it to get to the screen. I hear the mechanical hard drive is spinning. There is the mouse right there. So privacy, don't look at this guy. So I'm just gonna, otherwise he's gonna sue me. But my lawyers are from India. They're better than the ones that he has. Alright. So we're gonna power it down, and we are 95% done. The only thing that is left to do is to fix the PCS chip. So we're gonna unhook the battery. We're gonna remove the Kapton tape. Again, watch out for the capacitors. What I'm gonna do, we're gonna use the same thing, copper shim. This one really doesn't have to be really perfect copper shim. It can be any copper shim. Even this one I have has a liquid metal on it, so I'm just gonna clean it up. Make sure you clean that one in there. Now we're gonna use the same adhesive, and we're just gonna cut tiny one the size of the die right there. And just press hard right on top. Okay. Now, I don't like to just put this one right there because of the capacitors and everything around it. This copper is not going to touch the capacitors. It's way over that, so we can just put it right there, or we can just cover those capacitors with a Kapton tape. We could use the same Kapton tape that they have, but for some reason I don't want to. What I want to do, I want to use the same thermal pad here. I want to cut 4 of these ones because I have an adhesive silicone, and it's good for temperatures too. So it's a thermal paste, but in adhesive silicone. So I'll leave the link in the description where you can buy those. Right. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna lift these ones. If you guys want to support me, it will really help me out if you guys subscribe and click that like button. I would really appreciate it, as I'm trying to grow this channel and help you guys with your requests. That's why I appreciate any help you guys can do by just subscribing and clicking that like thumbs up button. Alright, so now I bought this one off eBay. I'll leave the link in the description. This is a thermal paste, but in adhesive. After 4 or 5 hours it just becomes really hard, and it is removable because it's just kind of glue, silicone type. So what I'm gonna do, you're gonna open it up. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put on 4 corners of this side, not in the middle, just on the corners. One right there, 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 and there. Now I'm gonna put it there right over here. So that way, if in the future we want to remove this, we can remove it without damaging the silicons around it. And that way I put the thermal pad, the double-sided tape with a thermal compound on it. That is the thermally compounded, whatever you want to call that. So this way the heat actually transfers nicely, evenly everywhere. So we're gonna let it sit there for about 4 to 5, 6 hours, and then we can actually go ahead and turn off and close the whole laptop up, and we are done. But I wouldn't flip it over until it just really cures the silicone right there. So pretty much we're done here. The last thing is to grab the top cover and put the back side where the heatsink is, and just push down the sides and put the red screws on the back, mid back, and the blue ones right in the front. Alright guys, I hope you guys like this video. If you guys liked it, click the thumbs up button, and I'll appreciate if you guys subscribe. If you have any questions, you know where to leave them, and I'll try to answer them as soon as I can. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you guys in my next video.